All right, happy campers, welcome back to Math Notes. It's been a while since we've taken math notes, but this is actually a continuation of the cheese problem that we've been working on, and it's actually kind of going over it a little bit, but without actually talking about cheese. No cheesy videos here, pun totally intended. I just wanted to show you that I am going to be using some colors that I think are helpful to really kind of see what it is that we're doing. We are going to be dividing fractions by whole numbers, and this is something that you should have learned in 5th grade. So many of you know how to do it, and that's great. But we're going to do it at first, and I told you this the other day, we're doing it with pictures. And again, I'm going to explain to you that the reason why I teach the way I do is so that you really understand what it is that you're doing. Because when I was growing up, I was good at math, and that's because I memorized how to do things. And I never really understood why I did it. I just did it. And that's great, but it's more about learning why and the process of it. And that will help you with other areas along the way. So I'm going to go ahead and if you have colors, it could be highlighters, colored pencils, colored pens, anything that will help you. I suggest at least 4 colors. If you don't have that, 1 is enough. You can kind of do every other. But I really encourage you to use the colors to see what we're doing. Okay, so I'm going to put these to the side for now, and I'm going to bring them back out when I need them. So our first example, we are going to start with 4 divided by 2/3. And what I'm going to tell you is that 4, the whole number that we start with, represents how many wholes are being divided. Okay, that's our starting point. How many wholes are being divided? When we divide, our fraction represents 2 different things. The denominator, bottom number, the denominator represents how many pieces we cut, and I put the term cut because it's all about making the actual division part. How many we cut our whole into. And then if you remember, this top number, this numerator, is going to represent how many of each piece in each group. Okay? So if I have a 1 on top, I'm not making a group, I'm just counting by ones. However, if I have a number other than 1 as my numerator, I'm going to have to make groups of the pieces that we cut. And again, oftentimes we can calculate this and get an answer, but we don't really understand what it is we're doing. And so what 4 divided by 2/3 means is how many groups of 2 1/3 pieces, I'm going to write 2 instead of the number 2 because then it looks like a fraction, 2 1/3 pieces will 4 wholes give us? Okay, so I'll say that one more time. 4 divided by 2/3 means how many groups of 2 1/3 pieces will 4 wholes give us? So I'm having 1/3 pieces, but I need 2 of them. And how many of those are in 4 wholes? And I'm going to show you 2 different ways. One way is going to be making bars, and one way is going to be using a number line. And there's many different ways for you to use bars. You can stack bars on top of each other. You can stack bars next to each other. You can stack them all together. It really depends on how you want to draw it, and I'll draw it a couple different ways with a couple different examples just so you can see the different types of bar models. And then we'll all do the line model, or the number line model. And then again, for the first couple problems, I really do want to see your drawings. You must draw the problems out, but you can choose if you like to use the bar model or the number line model. Okay, you can choose which one as long as you draw one. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start by drawing 4 holes, or 4 bars. And I kind of want to make them the same size. Your drawing is not going to be perfect, but you have to know that it represents an even or perfect amount. Okay. So I'm going to start with 4 to represent our 4 holes, and then I'm also going to draw a number line like we did with our cheese problem. And I will start at 0, I will end at 4. I'm going to take my number line, I'm going to find about the middle. I'll draw a 2, and then halfway in the middle of 0 and 2 will be my 1, and halfway between 2 and 4 will be my 3. So according to our fraction, it wants us to cut our holes into pieces of third based on our denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and slice each of these into a third. And they're not, again, they're not perfect, but we're kind of pretending that they are. And then with my number line, I'm going to make 2 slices in my number line, and that will represent 1/3 and 2/3. And then you know that 1 whole is the same as 3/3. I'm going to do the same here. I'll have 1 and 1/3, 1 and 2/3. 2 more slices between 2 and 3 gives me 2 and 1/3 and 2 and 2/3. And then 2 more slices between 3 and 4 gives me 3 and 1/3, 3 and 2/3. And then 4 is the same as 3 and 3/3. So now that we have everything cut, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my highlighters or my colors to make groups of 2 1/3 pieces. So this is helpful for me to go ahead and take my caps off my highlighters first. And you know, if you only have one color, you just do every other one, but since I have a couple different colors, I'm going to use a couple different colors. So I'm going to start with my bar model. 2, 2, and it's okay if they're not right next to each other. It's still a 1/3 piece. And so each time I colored in 2 pieces, that is one group. So here is one group. Here's another group. Come on, automatic focus, let's work. These 2 pieces make a 3rd group. These 2 pieces make a 4th group. These 2 pieces make a 5th group, and these 2 pieces make a 6th group. And you know that each of these pieces is worth 1/3. And I could write it in each box if I wanted to. I don't have to because I already know what it is. I was the one who cut my model, but I'm just going to write it in to show you that I have 2 pieces of 1/3 in each of my groups. I'm going to do the same thing for my number line. And with my number line, from 0 to 1/3 is 1 piece, and 1/3 to 2/3 is 1 piece. 2/3 to 1, 1 to 1/3, 1/3 to 1 2/3, and 1 2/3 to 2, 2 to 2 1/3, and 2 1/3 to 2 2/3, 2 2/3 to 3, 3 to 3 1/3, 3 1/3 to 2 2/3, and 2 2/3 to 4. And then I'm just going to do the same exact thing that I did with my bar model. And I'm just going to go ahead and show my groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so now I can solve my equation. 4 wholes divided by 2/3 is 6. And now because I know my answer is 6, I can see it. I can see why that's my answer. Okay, so I'm going to do another example, and I'm going to actually get the same answer of 6, but with a different problem, and we're going to be able to prove it. So example 2 is 2 divided by 1/3. And again, our 2 is our whole, our 3 is our pieces. We just did pieces of 3 up here, so we're going to do the same here, but we're only going to have 1 in our group. So this one will look a little bit easier. So for this bar model, I'm just going to stack them on top of each other like that. And then it makes it a little bit easier for me to draw my thirds. I just run the lines down. But I'm also going to make a quick number line with 0, 1, and 2. And then between 0 and 1, I make 2 cuts for 3 pieces. So I have 1/3, 2/3. And then between 1 and 2, I also make 2 cuts for 1 1/3 and 1 2/3. And because we have less, I think I'm just going to use 2 colors. Or you can even shade if you don't have colors. You can shade every other. So remember, the numerator tells us how many in our group. So I'm coloring every other here just so I can see it. That's 1 piece of 1/3. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Same here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2 divided by 1/3 is 6 pieces. One more example, and this example is going to show us what happens when we don't have an even number of groups. Because it won't always happen that we have an even number of groups. And this is where the tricky part comes in. And I'm going to actually explain it more in detail in a little bit, but I just want to show you the basics for right now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and flip my page just because I don't have a lot of room. So if you're still drawing, pause it and then come back when you're done. All right, example 3, and I'm going to put in parentheses leftover pieces. And we are going to do 2 wholes divided by 4/5. And so again, I'm going to draw a bar model. And these ones I'm just stacking next to each other. So again, a different way to draw a bar model. And I'm going to do a number line. And this means that I have to cut my holes into pieces of 5. So each bar and each number, I'm going to make 4 cuts. And remember, 4 cuts gives me 5 pieces. Same over here. And you can see on my number line, this piece between 4/5 and 1 is a little bit bigger, but that's okay. And the reason why I label these is because we're tending to precision. That's part of mathematical standards that you need to know how to be able to do. And over here I could label, this is my first hole, This is my second hole if I wanted to, but that, oh no, can you guys still see? My computer went off. Hopefully it's still taping my voice. Okay. Oh, technology. This might be confusing when we're making groups later, but just so you see that these were my holes that I started with. Okay, so again, now that I have my 2 holes and they're divided into pieces of 5, excuse me, each piece is worth 1/5, I'm going to make groups of 4. So I'm going to color in groups of 4. And uh-oh, you can see here I have 2 left over. So I'm going to come back and talk about that in just a minute. I'm just going to leave them empty for now. I'm going to go over here and do the same thing. And you will see that there will be leftovers. And I have these 2 pieces here that are left over. I can go ahead if I want to color them in just to show that they are apart, but they're not enough. Okay. So, I made 1 group, 2 groups, and I'm going to show it here as well. 1 group, 2 groups. So we have our holes. So I'm going to write 2 divided by 4/5 is 2. But now what do I do with those leftover pieces? And here is where it becomes very confusing and that you have to remember. Although my pieces are worth 1/5 each, I do not have 2/5 left over. Well, technically I do. I have 2 pieces of 2/5. However, it's asking me not how much the group is worth, it's asking me to make groups. So how many pieces are left over out of how many are in my group? So as you can see here, I was putting 4 in each group. And in order to make another group, I needed 2 more pieces. But I only have 2 out of the 4 that I need. I only have 2 out of the 4 that I need. And I'm going to write that in words. I have 2 pieces left out of the 4 I need for another group. And that's where your fraction comes in. That's your remainder. And so this represents the 2 out of the 4 that I need. And of course, I'm going to simplify it now because I know that 2 over 4 is the same as 1 over 2. That bar, this division bar, and this is part of what I wanted you to understand on your freckle lesson, is that this fraction bar means division. It means divide. Out of means divide. Out of means divide. 2 out of the 4. It's only a half. I only have 2 of the 4 that I need. And we did that yesterday or today in the morning a little bit with our cheese problem, if you remember. Okay, so it's super important that your leftover is not 2/5. It's not 2/5 because technically that's what it's worth. But remember, you're making groups. That's what the question is asking. And I can go back here and it says it means how many groups of blank will blank holes give us? How many groups? Not what the pieces are worth. Do I have to say it more times? I'm going to say it more times so you remember. It's not what the pieces are worth. It's how many you have in a group. And because I was making groups of 4 based on this number up here, I only had 2 pieces of my 4. Okay, so I'm giving you a to-do problem. And we're going to practice this more, I promise. But I'm going to ask you guys to talk about this problem when you come to morning meeting tomorrow. We're going to talk about it, and I might ask some of you to show me your papers. So I really want to see it. If you have colors, use colors. You can choose the number line model or the bar model. You don't have to draw both unless you want to. And this problem is going to be a little bit bigger. So, 7 divided by 2/3. You will have pieces left over. So look at example number 3. And remember, this problem is asking how many groups of 2 1/3 pieces are in 7 holes. 2 is what you want in your group. Your pieces are worth 1/3, but your group should have 2. So, pick your model, either the bar model or the number line model. Both, if you want to do both, you only have to do one. You will have leftovers. It's not what the leftovers are worth. It's how many out of the group is left over. Okay, we'll talk more tomorrow. I hope that watching the video is a little bit easier than doing it together as a class, because you can stop, rewind, go back if you didn't understand something. And again, this is our just introduction to it, so if you don't really understand it, it's okay. We're going to practice. And if you already knew how to do this, I hope that the picture helps you see why. All right. See you guys later. Bye.